Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is a 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael World B. Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 164, the Suns shooting guard episode, as both Brad Beal and Jalen Green both stand at 6'4". One of those guards seems to be sticking around, and the other, well, maybe not. We'll have more on both of those players in just a little bit. But let's start off with Monday's big 3-team trade that featured a few notable names as Norman Powell heads to Miami, John Collins goes to the Clippers, and Utah receives Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a 2027 Clippers second-round pick. Before I share my thoughts, I want to hear what you guys have to say. Bruce, I'll start with you. What did you think of today's trade?
Well, Powell won a chip back in 19 with Toronto. He's 31 years old. He's really kind of coming off his best individual season, averaged almost 22, shot almost 42% from downtown. And, he's got a year left on his deal, around 20 mil. Collins is in a similar situation without the chip. He's 28. He averaged 19, and he has 1 year left on his deal at just under 27. The Jazz, well, they're picking up Kevin Love, expiring 4 mil. Kyle Anderson, who has 2 years left at total of 19. As you mentioned, a second-round pick. So, look, Miami and the Clippers, they both add some punch to their teams. Utah, as Russ and I kind of discussed on text, they're basically clearing out salary and minutes for their younger guys. So Danny Ainge is clearly continuing to position himself for a solid draft next year in what should be a really good draft. So if this Utah crew can get to 25 wins, I'll be really surprised. But at least their young guys will get some experience, World B.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, from Miami's standpoint, this is an interesting move because they're we struggled the last couple of years to figure out what's their direction, the heat culture, and all this stuff. Has it been overblown, and are they just going to reload or rebuild and all this stuff? And now you add Powell into this lineup. There's some potential there with Tyler Hero, Bam. Now you got Powell in there, Andrew Wiggins, and you got some guys in there. That lineup really can be a factor. I think if they're all healthy, and there's no real reason to think they won't be. Those guys have been fairly durable. This can be a quality lineup that can compete all of a sudden. And they get some 3-point shooting that they lost with Duncan Robinson, a much better player, obviously, Powell is, than Duncan Robinson. But they pick up some of what they lost and probably picked up more, probably considering the volume of what Powell brings to the lineup than what Duncan Robinson did. But this is now suddenly another quality lineup in the East that just gets more and more competitive with each passing day, it seems like.
Yeah, I agree with you, World B. I think if I had to kind of rank who won this trade, I'd give Miami the number 1 spot in this one. I think getting Norman Powell, a guy that can shoot, he's one of my favorite pure scoring guards in the league. I think that's only going to help the scoring punch off the perimeter, kind of relieve the duties of Tyler Hero. At times last year, I felt like Hero was pressured to score the ball so much that it became a burden for his overall productivity. So I think getting a guy like Norman Powell, who can obviously fill it up from 3, get to the foul line, and also a guard that plays well off on-ball screens. And Bam Adebayo is one of the better screeners in the NBA. I think Norman Powell will certainly, he had Zubac last year, who was a good screener. He'll easily transition over to playing with Bam Adebayo as well. And then from Utah's standpoint, getting off John Collins' money, I think his expiring $26.5 million contract comes off the books. So that allows them to potentially absorb another potential bad contract in a trade later on this season, maybe around the deadline. And as Bruce pointed out with Danny Ainge, he's going to be able to get, if he takes on another bad contract, he's going to get some draft capital for next year's very talented draft. So great move from there. And, Utah also has those young guys that they are looking to get some more time for. Kyle Filipowski, Taylor Hendrick, and even Ace Bailey, Lauri Markkanen. So that 3-4 position is pretty overcrowded in Utah. So getting rid of Collins kind of makes sense for the youth movement there. My only question for you guys is this. I mean, Norman Powell was one of the 6 Man of the Year candidates last year with the Clippers. Now with him leaving, I know they still have Bogdan Bogdanovic, who certainly in the past, especially in Atlanta, has proven he can score the basketball. But do you think he's ready to step up in that role? Because outside of him, it's like Chris Dunn, and they haven't even re-signed Amir Coffey. So any concerns with the backcourt with the Clippers, Bruce?
Well, James Harden will take enough shots for all their guards combined, so no, I don't really know. I mean, look, it's still early in the summer, so you never know who might still be available out there, especially with the summer league just getting cranked up. I haven't really looked at their summer league roster, so I don't know who they've brought in, but I think they'll be able to find somebody to play with James and Kawhi.
Gotcha. The problem for me is it isn't just what they're missing from the 3-point thing. They're missing a catch and shoot guy now. They really don't have that anymore. If you look at that lineup, I mean, James Harden's not off the catch and shoot. Kawhi Leonard certainly isn't. So Nick Batum is potentially that kind of a player, but you don't see – he doesn't get a lot of minutes. He's a role player now. So they're really – where they're missing out on at the moment is that catch and shoot 3-point guy that Powell was so solid at a season ago.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, speaking of trades, let's go ahead and shift over and discuss the historic 7-team NBA trade that was officially announced on Sunday, which, of course, was the deal that sent Jalen Green to Phoenix and got Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets. So, Bruce, just kind of looking at this trade being announced, I mean, trades these days just really aren't what they used to be, are they?
Look, in today's NBA, it's not unusual for two teams looking to make a trade to involve a third team to facilitate the deal. The reasons can vary, and we obviously are not going to try to explain all of them. That would take up 2 48-minute shows.
Yeah.
But there's never been a 7-team trade. But when this Durant from Phoenix to Houston thing was finalized, there were 5 other teams in the mix. Now, we obviously know Durant and Clint Capella are now Rockets. Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and Kaman Maluach are going to be, Phoenix with a bunch of throw-ins. But the other 5 teams in this deal, Atlanta, Brooklyn, Golden State, the Lakers, and Minnesota, they received like second-round picks, cash, spare parts, and no well-known guy. I mean, the best-known guy that any of those other 5 teams got was David Roddy. Hello. I mean, played a little bit from Memphis. No one knows who David Roddy is except people who do 48 minutes, I suppose, or listen to us. Yeah. But look, Houston's a step closer to a conference final. Phoenix adds some talent and toughness. The other 5 teams are unlikely to be any better or worse next season based on this deal. But hey, history was made.
Yeah. Will be anything to add there on just the history behind this 7-team trade?
Well, the thing that intrigued me the most about it was if you look at it, 17, you're talking about nearly a quarter of the league was involved in this league. 23% of the teams in the NBA, 7 out of 30, were involved in this deal. It's almost a quarter of the league took part in this deal in some fashion. To me, that kind of almost blew my mind a little bit about, we knew everything. The particulars were always the same for the last week and a half or so. So that's nothing new. As Bruce mentioned, it all comes down to the Rockets and the Suns, what's going to happen with those, and everybody else got a little piece of the pie there. That's great. But, yeah, almost a quarter of the league involved in this trade. That's pretty good. And Bruce mentioned, yeah, because of salary cap, because of exceptions, because of all this and that, that's why more teams had to get involved to facilitate it. That's fine. But it's just funny how we're up to this point where it's becoming a bigger deal than free agency right now. It's the trading period. The trades are involved. It's becoming more intriguing than just who's going to sign where as a free agent.
It really is. Pretty mind-blowing stuff there. I might have to try that in my fantasy basketball league next year. Try to get 7 teams involved on some trade just to try to confuse some people. Could be a good
Don't
strategy.
have a 30-team league, though. If you get 7 teams involved without knowing your league, you pulled off a better one than what we saw here.
Yeah. Hey, maybe Ross is going to allow some expansion teams in, I mean, the fee is up to like $5 billion now, I think. So,
yeah, as long as I get the expansion fees and you don't tell anybody else, you can join my league. Anyhow, moving forward here, Houston was not done dealing as they sent Cam Whitmore to the Wizards over the weekend for 2 second-round picks in exchange. I'd count this as another big W for the Wizards offseason. I know I talked about it last week and liking what they've been doing. I think getting Cam Whitmore for 2 seconds is pretty good. World B, are you on board with that?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
In terms of value, it works. In terms of value, it works out. You didn't give up much to get somebody to come by who's a area native, Baltimore native like Cam Whitmore and Villanova product. But you have to wonder what kind of a headache Whitmore had become to the Rockets for them to trade away. Soon next week he turns 21. A soon to be 21-year-old after just 2 seasons, played less than 100 games for them on a rookie contract, no less, and who has career averages, almost 11 points a game in just 17 minutes. So you got to wonder, the Rockets, from their standpoint, have just, we talked about with Jalen Green, they're absolutely done with trying to develop these young guys. And the GM of the Rockets, Raphael Stone said it perfectly, quote, "We're not a developmental team anymore." I mean, that's it. They've given up on Jalen Green. They've given up on Cam Whitmore. In comes Kevin Durant. They're all in on trying to win now and compete with Oklahoma City. I suppose you got to give them credit for just going all in at a time when it doesn't look like Oklahoma City is going anywhere. From the Wizards standpoint, the value makes sense. I don't know what you're going to get out of a guy. If they can turn him around and turn him into pay more attention to defense, put a little more emphasis on that in this game, he has obviously the offensive potential to excel, but is he going to play defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the jury's still out, though. He hasn't gotten enough minutes to play, and that was always his beef with playing in Houston. He was stuck behind 2 or 3 guys on the wing. Bruce, any thoughts on Cam Whitmore? And at least I think this is a big win for him. He's getting the opportunity he wanted.
Totally. I mean, Cam Whitmore should be a very happy man. I mean, look, in Houston, he struggled to get minutes. He goes to Washington, which, unlike Houston, is a team that focuses on player development at the moment. So he's 21. He's 6'7". He's a wing, as mentioned. He grew up in Maryland. And you also mentioned that, he averaged nearly 11 points. Now, he's a Villanova product. That's usually a good thing. Okay. He joins a team that has a bunch of changes next year. I mean, look, Jordan Poole and another Villanova guy, Sadiq Bey, are gone. And, you got vets like C.J. McCollum, Kelly Olynyk coming in. And they have a pretty decent core with Alex Sarr and Bud Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, and their overall number 5 pick this year in the draft, Trey Johnson from Texas. So, look, the Wizards haven't had a 50-win season since 1979, okay, when they lost in the finals to Seattle. That is 46 straight seasons if you're counting at home. Nearly half a century and not a single 50-win season. I mean, that streak is probably going to continue this year, but they do have that philosophy of developing young guys, and they do have some young talent to work with. So there is hope for the future. And I'm not going to, go overboard here, but could they be this season's version of the Pistons to kind of come out of nowhere and maybe double their win total from 18 to 36? I mean, DC fans are praying, Ross.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I think at the very least, we can say that they could be a League Pass watch this year. One of the fun, more entertaining young teams to watch on League Pass from a night-to-night basis, because I do see them kind of being more competitive than most people would think at this given time of the offseason. Now, the last thing I wanted to say on this Cam Whitmore deal was it was reported, too, that Cam Whitmore was offered to the Suns as part of that historic 7-team trade, but the Suns elected to go with a second-round pick instead of Whitmore. So maybe that goes with World B's point that he might be a problem, or maybe it would have been the same problem in Phoenix with finding Whitmore minutes, given they have Grayson Allen, Ryan Dunn, Beal, Jalen Green, and Devin Booker. Who knows? The jury's still out, but come next year, we'll get some clarity in whether or not Cam Whitmore is for real. Now, speaking of the Suns, let's talk about Brad Beal's future in Phoenix. And my big question is, if he is bought out, which that seems to be the report now, he might be bought out in the next couple of days, where could you see him landing? Bruce?
Well, here's the deal. Brad Beal is under contract for 2 more seasons for around $110 million. Okay. He's 32 years old. He's been injured frequently in his 2 years in Phoenix. He makes too much money for us to look at him as a 6th man, but He can still get buckets. He's been a 40% three-point shooter in Phoenix, averaged 17 as a Sun. It's a far cry from his all-star years in Washington, but this guy has gas left in his tank. So if the Suns buy him out, some team could get him at a bargain price. And if they're a good team, I think he'd be an amazing sixth man coming off the bench, getting buckets, shooting threes. Look, I'm a Celtics fan. We know that. They're hungry for help. Jason Tatum is a lifelong friend from St. Louis. So I don't know if JT could convince him to come to Boston if the price is right. He would play a lot next year, but then when they get JT back, maybe he would then step into that six-man role. But if that doesn't work out, you know where I would love to see him end up? I'd love to see him end up in Orlando as their sixth man. That would be dope.
That would be pretty cool. And yeah, Brad Beal and Jason Tatum played at the same high school, Chaminade Prep in St. Louis. And his head coach there, or both of their head coaches, was David Lee's dad. So that would be three former Celtics if he were to end up with Boston. World B, what's your thoughts on Brad Beal's future in Phoenix, and where would you like to see him end up?
Well, his future is, about as secure as a carton of milk. He's not going to last a whole lot longer if you believe what you read. For me, the most intriguing thing reading about this isn't necessarily where he's going to go. It's the contract situation and where that puts him. Phoenix is in such salary cap hell, as it were, because they're got to get out from this. As Bruce mentioned, he's owed about almost 111 million, over 110 million for 2 more years. But in order for the Suns to be able to stretch out the deal that we're told for the next 5 years, he has to give up about $14 million of his deal in order to make it work for Phoenix, and that puts Phoenix under the salary cap, I believe, not even under the apron. I think they're under the cap. But now, which team can give Bradley Beal the deal to recoup that $14 million that he's got to give up? That's what he's going to probably be looking for. Well, it can't be the Clippers anymore because the Clippers gave up their exception, their $14 million, to get Brook Lopez. It's not going to be Miami, where it was rumored for years that he was going to there after they just got Norman Powell to go all that far. So there's not going to be a whole lot of money left there. So I honestly don't know. The Celtics are an interesting idea for them. Which team is going to come up with at least money to approach the money that Beal is going to lose? Because not too many people at this stage right now, we're well past a week in free agency. There's not a lot of money left for guys to spend. There's still a lot of free agents out there, like Jonathan Kuminga, who's still got his future up in the air. So I'm more intrigued about what team is going to actually be able to clear up space or provide that exception for Bradley Beal, who, as Bruce mentioned, he can still put the points on the board. He had 17 last year, almost 48%, almost 40% from three. He doesn't get on the court. He is so injured, it's ridiculous. Hasn't played more than 60 games in about 7 years. So there's another option. Somebody's going to give him, let's say somebody works out with $10 million. You're really going to pay him $10 million to get 50 games out of him, which is the going rate now for him, the trend? It's a tough situation for Beal and for any teams, really, that think that he's the difference maker in their team success.
But are we sure he's going to want that $14 million to try to recoup it all? I could see him, given this stage of his career, taking a pay cut discount. I mean, it's not like this guy hasn't made enough money throughout his career with being on a max contract. I still think he would sacrifice money to go to a team like a Miami. I would have said Miami, like you said, World B, prior to Norman Powell being traded there as of Monday afternoon. But I still think the Clippers are on the table. And I think the Clippers are a team that would take a chance on him and a team that would he would take a pay cut for because of the LA lifestyle and weather that he and his family.
And how much of a pay cut? Now, how much of a pay cut are we talking here? He's not going to be.
I don't know. He could slide right in as a starter, though, in LA.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think wherever he goes, I think he has the potential to be a starter. His numbers tell you he's still got some quality starter production in him. But teams don't have a whole lot of money left at this stage. They've kind of rounded out their lineup for the roster for the most part. So even simple exceptions, even the smallest exceptions, a lot of teams do not have that. Places he would like to go. I wouldn't see him in Orlando simply because I think their salary. I think they after the Banquero deal, they're fine with salary for a while. Although he would be a good fit, I don't disagree.
But again, if you're getting him on the cheap, okay, look. Playing in Texas and Florida means no state income tax. And most states, the state income tax, I mean, in California, it's like 13%. Okay. So that's on top of federal tax. So when you're talking about, leaving 14 million on the table, a lot of that can be offset if you don't have to pay state income tax. But that's not really, that would be kind of like a residual sort of a benefit from it. A team's got to want him in Florida. So, so if Orlando didn't want him, it's Miami or, nothing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of teams trying to round up their rosters, the Pacers are still trying to do that after they figured out Myles Turner was departing and trying to figure out what's next for them. And they made a trade with the Memphis Grizzlies for Jay Huff. And he is a 7'1" center that will have a chance to compete for some of those minutes at the center position with Turner now out of town. My first question to you both, and Bruce, I'll start with you. Have you ever seen Huff play? Because I will tell you this, he could co-star alongside Mac McClung in a movie called White Man Can Jump.
I have seen Jay Huff play, and I think Jay Huff's a pretty good player. I mean, much like Cam Whitmore, he should be a very happy man. As you mentioned, you can't teach 7'1", okay? He played for Virginia. He's played 4 NBA seasons for 4 different teams: Lakers, Wizards, Nuggets, and Grizz. And now that he's a Pacer, that's 5 teams in 5 seasons, which could be close to a record. I'm not going to say it's definitely a record because, Billy Owens was in this league for a long time, but it could be close. I mean, look, last year in Memphis, he had his best year. Played 64 games, averaged nearly 7 points in just under 12 minutes a game. That's pretty good production. He makes his threes over 40% for his career. And look, he's not going to be a full replacement for Myles Turner because he's not a shot blocker and he's not even that much of a rebounder. But he can stretch the opposing defenses by stepping out and make some threes. And on defense, look, Rick Carlisle will be coaching him. One thing about Rick Carlisle's team, their defensive schemes, those guys are always on a string. And I think Jay Huff will fit in well enough to give them maybe 40 to 50% of what Turner gave him if he can handle the minutes.
All right. World B, your thoughts?
Well, Bruce, if he can handle the minutes, he's never seen a whole lot of minutes in his career. It's the last season, just 2 rebounds a game, albeit in 12 minutes. Bruce mentioned he's not afraid to shoot from the perimeter. It's almost 41% on 3 shots a game. He takes 3 threes in 12 minutes, so he's not shy about that. He knows his role there. He's a serviceable player. I think he's just not going to make anybody he's not a replacement for Myles Turner, as Bruce mentioned. He's a serviceable player, and if he can get extended minutes, make it up to 20, maybe half the game, 24, and he produces, what we're seeing here, yeah, he could be a factor on a team, but he's just not a difference maker. I don't think he is a role player who could have an extended period with the, extended time on the court with the Pacers, which would help forget Myles Turner's production a little bit, but not nearly enough.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Now, staying in the East, we had big news that broke out later on Monday as Paolo Banchero and the Orlando Magic agreed to a 5-year, $239 million maximum rookie extension that could reach up to $287 million with incentives. You've got to be delighted with the news, aren't you, World B?
Well, yeah, the Magic fan or whatever, it wasn't unexpected. They were going to make this deal happen with all the other moves they've been making. They're all in. I mean, they're clearly everything is in place for this team to make a significant push in the Eastern Conference, and not just for this season, for the next couple of seasons. But, you got Bain signed long-term. Now you got Banquero signed long-term. Franz Wagner signed long-term. Jalen Suggs is signed long-term. So that's your 4 big guys all getting big bucks and for long term. The problem comes is now you have expectations, and now you're going to be, up there with the top 2. Now, right now, everybody's looking at it as, because of injuries and whatever, as New York and now Orlando as the big contenders in the East, which is fine. Doesn't break my heart to see them get the hype, but now you got to live up. This is not a team that, last season they did not live up to the hype. They had a great 2 seasons ago. They pushed the Cavs to 7 games. They had a young crew. Everybody was excited. And last season, they still made the playoffs, but they were oft injured, a lot of guys out. So the expectations are going to come with this. And now what happens with their salary structure now, they're in the big-time payroll list. They're up with the big boys. They're totally in, which is fine. But now you're talking the first apron, the second apron. If this doesn't work out, how long are these guys actually going to be with Orlando if it doesn't work out? It's a gamble, but I'm happy that they're making this gamble with this young group.
Bruce?
He's a stud. He's your best player. He's the cornerstone of your franchise. Give the man his money and just make sure you get him some good help. Next.
I agree. Amen, Bruce. Next up, we've got Jaxson Hayes, another big re-signing in the NBA, as he signed with the Los Angeles Lakers to rejoin that group. But Bruce, I'll ask you this. Are you a bit surprised there was mutual interest between both parties with this free agent signing, given the fact DeAndre Ayton just signed with the Lakers and with Hayes getting benched in last year's playoffs?
Yes, and hell yes. I mean, look, Hayes is going to back up DeAndre Ayton if JJ Redick lets him take his warm-ups off. I mean, he actually did start 35 games last season, but he fell out of favor, as we all documented in the playoffs. He started all 4 games and never played more than 9 minutes in any of those games that he appeared in. Ouch. But, they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, so Ayton kind of replaces him, and that means that Hayes keeps his roster spot. I wonder what his relationship with head coach JJ Redick is going to be after that playoff demotion. Maybe Hayes has the kind of personality where he will just be freaking fired up with something to prove. And he's going to, force JJ Redick to realize he made a mistake. That's what you hope if you like Jaxson Hayes.
Yeah. Will be anything to add there on Jaxson Hayes re-signing with the Lakers?
Well, there's some idea that maybe he was brought in as some sort of insurance plan for DeAndre Ayton and things don't work out there. But, people got to realize that Jaxson Hayes is not exactly the State Farm of basketball insurance here. He's not going to really provide that much insurance. He's only 25 years old, but 6 seasons in the NBA, and he still can't get enough minutes. A 7-foot center can't get enough minutes on the court to average even 5 rebounds or 1 block a game in his career. So I don't know what you realistically should expect from him at this point. The only hope is that with DeAndre Ayton to go along with Luka, to go along with LeBron James, it didn't happen last year, obviously, but maybe the light comes on and says, hey, I got a chance to be on a serious contender. Maybe I got to step up my game, change things or whatever it is, and maybe that spurs some extra production out of him. But, yeah, I was a little surprised that this actually came down, given everything the way it was.
Yeah, I agree with you, World B. This is an insurance policy for DeAndre Ayton, and let's just face the facts here. It was reported Ayton was repeatedly late to team practices and flights in Portland. So just imagine what LA could do to him. You think he could be late for a couple flights in Los Angeles if it happens in Portland? I think so. So
I kind of hope LeBron James will not allow that to happen once the season gets up. That's why one of the reasons why you have him around is he's got there's no more bigger veteran leadership person at this stage than just in time alone than LeBron James. So maybe he can turn DeAndre Ayton's attitude around, but Chris Paul couldn't do it. So in Phoenix, I don't know exactly if it's asking too much of LeBron or not.
Yeah, great point there. Now, last but certainly not least, let's talk about a friend of the show. As it's now official, Mike Brown was named the new head coach of the New York Knicks. World B, I'll turn it right back over to you here. I think this is a great signing. I know it was one that we all three were in agreement would probably be the best one for the Knicks as terms of fit. What are your thoughts now that Coach Brown has, signed over the contract in ink?
Yeah, you know what? It had been an embarrassing situation for about a month for the Knicks front office because of getting rid of a quality coach, their best coach in the last quarter century, and Tom Thibodeau, and we wondered, who was going to take over for him. This is probably the best possible option to me that they could find, a guy who's coached in the finals, coached in the big markets, has coached some of the biggest names out there. And so I don't think he's going to have a problem adjusting to, New York's a little bit tougher than even LA, I think, in terms of expectations, fan reaction, all that stuff. But you can't ask for a guy who's been around the block in terms of quality of teams he's been on, assistant at Golden State, whatever. He's got a ready-made roster to compete for a Eastern Conference title. It's a really good situation for him. It's a really good situation for the Knicks. I think it really made the Knicks front office. It was a nice recovery by them. We'll call it that.
Yeah, Bruce.
The Knicks are a pretty mature team. I mean, look, you have solid guys on that team. Brunson. Josh Hart, Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. I mean, Mike Brown has always been good about holding guys accountable, and I think that's a mature bunch there. I think it's actually going to be a very nice fit. Hopefully he can get Karl Anthony Towns to sharpen up his screen and roll defense a little bit, but Mike is known as a, really good defensive mind. So, and look, as you said, he's a friend of the show. I mean, I consider him a friend. We've actually texted a little bit since this whole thing went down, and he's pretty excited, and I'm excited for him. So hopefully, I told him it's going to be great to finally have you on the East Coast.
All right, and both the Salt Lake City Summer League and California Classic Summer Leagues are underway. So let's take a moment to talk about the action on the floor going on in the NBA right now with all the youngsters around the league, and just take a moment to highlight some of the bigger name youngsters that are out there playing as of now. First up, we got Philadelphia's VJ Edgecombe, who was the third pick in this past year's draft. He scored an impressive 28 points in his debut. And I got to say, what impressed me most, Bruce, about VJ's play was just how composed he was and under control he was before he turned on the jetpack and went into full throttle mode. Because is that kid athletic.
I love the fact that he jacked up 27 shots in just under 30 minutes on the floor. I mean, he had 28, 10, and 4 in that game. He's only 19 years old. I mean, he's going to compete with Jared McCain and Quentin Grimes, maybe if they get him signed, for minutes alongside Tyrese Maxey. So if he keeps getting 27 shots a game during the Summer League, he may be ready to contribute this season, provided his shooting arm doesn't fall off first.
Yeah. World B, do you see him being a first-year contributor on Philadelphia next season?
Absolutely. You're not going to draft somebody that highly and not put him – the health factor alone means you pretty much expect him to get minutes if by default, even if he struggles a little bit just because their frequency of injuries and their age and stuff. Bruce mentioned the numbers are great. They were plus 10 when he was on the court in that game the other night. So that's impressive as well. 27, he's going to have to be a little more efficient. 28 points, 27 shots to get 28 points isn't the most efficient night of all time. But, the first game, you figure that'll come over time there. He had the chance to the 76ers are really maybe the most intriguing team to me, at least in the East, in terms of what they can do if everybody is healthy. There's no team in the league, I don't think, has the health is the bigger X factor on than with the Philadelphia 76ers. If everybody can, some miracle of miracles, stay healthy, there's a lot of quality on that lineup that we thought we were going to see last season when we put them in the mode with the Knicks as one of the biggest contenders to the Celtics.
Yep. And Utah's Ace Bailey, another top pick in this year's draft, got to debut at home in Salt Lake City in their summer league, but he had quite a rough start to his NBA career in this one as he came up just scoring 8 points on 3 of 13 shooting. But Bruce, the word is the Jazz were impressed with Bailey's hustle. So that's got to count for something, right?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to the points and the poor shooting, he did have 7 rebounds. He had a block shot. He had a steal in just under 25 minutes. So, he's trying to play both ends of the court, which is good. Pre-draft, there was this chatter. Bailey wasn't interested in playing in Utah. But one thing he's going to gain in Salt Lake City is experience, because it's a pretty young team, and he's going to get minutes and touches. So that should help his development.
Yep. World B, is he a guy you've got circled on your League Pass watch next year?
Well, I'll take a wait and see approach on that one. He's an intriguing talent. There's really not a whole lot of question about his talent. It's about his mindset and his off the field. Not that he's a troublemaker, just all the headaches or whatever that comes with him. I mean, aren't we just happy he's in Utah to begin with? Aren't we just happy he found his way to the Jazz locker room and all that? So, one thing you got to be 25 minutes. He didn't have one turnover. That's a positive to his day. That's good. The shooting stuff, that first game, pros, you're playing against, even in summer league, you're probably going against better competition than you saw in college at some point. So it's not the worst line of all time. Let's see now if it goes like this for an entire summer league, then you got to go. Right now, it's fine.
Yeah, well, Nikola Topic made his summer league debut with the Thunder over the weekend. And for those that need a quick refresher, Topic was a potential top 5 pick in the 2024 draft, but fell to OKC at number 12 as he suffered a partially torn ACL injury in his left knee just a few months prior to the draft. So on Saturday, he finally suited up for the Thunder. He scored 14 points to go along with 4 assists in 26 minutes of play. So, Bruce, could this just be yet another weapon for Thunder coach Mark Daigneault to have off his bench next season?
Boy, it sure looks like it. I mean, before he got hurt, he was considered to be up there with the other international top draftee guys last year, like Alex Sarr and Zachary Ricochet. We'll see what minutes are available for him. He was impressive in his debut at both ends. He did have 7 turnovers, but look, there's no pressure at all on him. So they're going to win a lot of games by a lot of points, and this young guy should get a lot of minutes, maybe some mop-up time, but that's how you get it started for him. So, yeah, I think this looks like, if he's healthy, he's got the game.
World B, you think Topic can find some time in that OKC rotation?
It's going to be tough. They're loaded, as we know. He just got to love life as a Thunder fan or as a member of the Thunder, period. That front office, they have so many draft assets. They have so much talent on the court that even a guy who gets an ACL injury before the draft last year, and he drops from, like you said, being a top 5 or top 10 pick, and the Thunder can just take a flyer on him and say, yeah, we'll take him at 12. If it doesn't work out, so what? Nobody else. I don't know if anybody else can do that. They waste a number 12 pick on a guy with an ACL injury. Say, yeah, you can sit for a year. Maybe it'll work out. Maybe. Can you imagine a team like the Wizards pulling a stuff like that? And what would happen if it doesn't work out? Oklahoma City, if he doesn't work out, you'll never know he existed in there because they're so loaded and they're so deep in assets. It's great to be a Wizard, a Thunder fan right now, where you can just take a flyer. And if it does work out and his numbers were fine in the first game, maybe he can see some time on the court. It won't be because of lack of talent. It's just going to be there's a lot of talent on that court at the end of the day.
Yeah. All right, Bruce. Well, Memphis is also playing in the Salt Lake City Summer League, and they've got a 20-year-old forward who scored 20 points on 8 of 15 shooting against Topic and the Thunder on Saturday. So can you help remind me of his name? Because I'm starting to forget it.
ABCDEFGG.
That is correct. GG Jackson is suiting up for the Memphis Grizzlies in summer leagues thus far. He's doing it along with Jalen Wells and Cam Spencer. Those are 3 guys that found their way in the rotation for the Grizzlies last year. So I don't know about you, Bruce, but I think the Grizzlies could be my early Vegas Summer League champions.
Well, we talked about last week, who were some of the, teams that might be kind of, big winners, since the end of last season. And look, those three guys you mentioned, even Zion Pullen's on their roster. He only played like 3 games for those guys last year, but Wells was one of the top rookies in the NBA. I mean, he started 74 games last year, and he's playing in the summer league. So he's all about getting experience, getting better. Spencer, we know, won an NCAA championship at UConn. He just signed a contract extension. So, and those 3 guys, Wells and Jackson had 20. Spencer had 14 against OKC, and Pullen even added 8. So they've done a great job in Memphis over the years, identifying talent, developing young guys. And this is one of the ways they do it. They get summer league minutes in Vegas. So, yeah, I mean, bravo. Good job by the Grizz. They're definitely, their arrows pointing up.
World B, what are your thoughts on the grit and grind Grizzlies of summer?
I'm kind of surprised to see 2 all-rookie performers like G.G. Jackson and Jalen Wells on the roster at all. I understand Jackson's been hurt. He hasn't even played what the equivalent of a full season in 2 seasons with the Grizzlies. So I understand the idea of wanting to get him back on the court working again. I can accept that to some extent, but I worry about the injury factor, period, would have me a little cautious. This isn't like, in baseball, somebody coming off an arm injury, you send them down to the minors for a couple of games and then you bring them back up. This is July. You're not going to see him on the court again in an actual game until preseason in October. So I don't know the overall benefit of having these 2 guys, key members of your team, playing on the summer league where injury can really have a chance to happen again. And even if it doesn't happen, we saw with all these Achilles injuries over this past season, a lot of overuse, a lot of time, too much time on the court is a contributing factor to some of these, in my opinion. And I think you're taking a chance having these guys on there. Maybe you won't see them much longer just to get a workout in or whatever, and that's fine. But I just worry about too much overuse, even when a guy like Jackson has only played, 77 games or whatever in 2 seasons.
Yeah, this could be a situation where these guys are just playing in the Salt Lake City games and then we'll sit out Vegas. We've seen that a time or 2 in the past with some of these second and third year guys that do participate in these sidebar summer leagues. All right, Bruce, we are back, and let's go ahead and get to a fun off-season game. And we're going to just call this one simply Bruce's Classic Card Challenge. So I'll hand it off to you.
It is time to show everybody why the 48 Minutes crew is unique. This segment, as you mentioned, is the Classic Card Challenge, where I pull random cards of former players and ask you guys for thoughts about these guys. Now, Ross and World B were not told in advance whose cards would be shown, so this is all off the cuff. I know everyone's going to be impressed, so here it goes. So let's do it like this, because we're getting up there on time. Just give me your best, 10 to 15 seconds on each guy. Then that way you don't have to go on and on. Just give me, your top line thought. So, Ross, we're going to start with you.
All right.
That is Gilbert Arenas, Agent Zero.
Oh, brings all his guns to work in D.C. Obviously just had a nice Netflix show about that situation in the locker room with Javaris Crittington. But think of the 2000s. Gilbert Arenas, one of the most clutch performers down the stretch of games, and definitely a big character on and off the floor. World B, this is Allen Houston, Knickerbocker great.
Oh, absolutely, Knickerbocker great. Current front office guy there. He will always be remembered for me for hitting this shot in Game 5 of the 99 first-round series to beat Miami Heat in Miami and lead them on the way to a trip to the NBA Finals. He also had a huge series against the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. But, yeah, he's one of the best to ever do it in New York.
And one of the finest men you'll ever meet in the basketball family, too. I worked with him for a year at ESPN. Super good guy. All right, Ross. Rasheed Wallace.
Ball don't lie. One of the all-time favorites for referees to have to officiate, as he made them want to pull their hair out if they had any. But one of the best big men of his time, hitting threes, and had that classic fadeaway wearing his high-top Air Force Ones with the with the Pistons and won a title with them. Even played with the Celtics down the stretch there. So had a lot of fun watching Sheed play growing up.
World B, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon.
Oh, it broke my heart in '94 with his dominant play. Really one of the best to ever do it. I don't know if there were 5 centers better than him in the history of this game. I always see Shaq's name mentioned above his when people list all-time greats, and it really drives me up a wall because I just don't think it's any comparison. I think Hakeem Olajuwon was the better player overall, offensively, defensively, when you take everything into account. Simply one of the best to ever do it.
Ross, this is Eva Longoria's former husband, Tony Parker. He's French, you know.
Yeah, one of the most crafty point guards, international point guards that we've seen. I remember him being a later draft pick in the first round and didn't know much about him. Quickly learned as a Suns fan that he could slice up the Suns defense and get to wherever he really wanted out onto the floor, and obviously made a lot of his teammates better. And Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Bruce Bowen, Robert Horry, and was the ball handler for that legendary team.
Where did he spend his last season?
Charlotte Hornets.
And he was the NBA Finals MVP, I believe, in Spurs' final championship.
Not
All right.
Not
right. All right, World B. A New York City playground legend, Rod Strickland.
Another Knick legend, as it turned out. A really underrated point guard. As you mentioned, New York City legend. He was on the same. They drafted Mark Jackson one year. He wins a Rookie of the Year. The next year in the draft, they take Rod Strickland, and that worked out gangbusters. They had to eventually trade him, and maybe they traded the wrong guy, as it turned out. He had everything you'd want. He had all the tools you want as a point guard: the ability to drive, the ability to dish, the ability to shoot. He was really an underrated player when you talk about point guard. Outside of New York City, he's underrated. Inside New York City, he's still a legend.
Russ Geiger, former Phoenix Suns employee. How's about telling us about Sean Marion?
Oh, that's my favorite Sun of all time. I think he's one of the more underrated players of his generation. Kind of was the first stretch four, if you ask me. He kind of invented the position in Mike D'Antoni's 8 seconds or less. But a guy that could do it all. He was a fantasy wonder for fantasy players that were early on in the fantasy games with 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks, 40% shooting from 3, good rebounder, and always moved without the basketball, and Steve Nash would find him for some nice, easy looks. So always a big fan of the Matrix.
All right, World B, this one's a layup for you. We mentioned him earlier in the show. Latrell Sprewell.
Oh, Spree. The guy, another New York legend for not a New York City legend, but a Knick legend to this day. He came and really changed the whole mentality of that organization or that roster with his play. He was another key member of that 99 Eastern Conference championship team. First year after the whole suspension thing with the choking of PJ Carlesimo, he came there, cost the Knicks a Knick legend in John Starks. But yeah, he paid off for them, and him and Allen Houston in the backcourt were really tough to stop. And you can ask Larry Bird in the conference finals that they had no answer for the two of them.
Okay, I got one more each because we've already blown past 48 minutes, but you guys are dropping such knowledge about these old timers. I got to give you one more shot each. Ross Geiger, Steve
Nash. Oh, man. One of the best point guards of all time. The 2-time MVP that didn't come without controversy, as some would say. He stole the second one from Kobe Bryant in the second year he won it. But without Nash, there would be no 8 seconds or less Suns. And it's a shame the man never won a title, because he certainly deserved one and sparked a whole different generation, along with Vince Carter, of Canadian-born basketball players.
All right, World B. I gave you Allen Houston. I gave you Latrell Sprewell. I even gave you Rod Strickland. Now I'm giving you Reggie Miller.
Oh, boy, you broke my heart in '94 with Akeem, and now you break my heart every other year.
Oh, yeah, I
with
gave you
Reggie.
Akeem, too. You're welcome.
Until Steph came around, Steph Curry came around, I really didn't think there was a better shooter than Reggie Miller. He really was incredible. He obviously was one of the clutch shooters of all time. And, just the Knicks experience alone would get him in the Hall of Fame. The way he broke our hearts with 9 points in 8 seconds, 25 points in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, really took down the Knicks numerous times. But you know what? The Knicks got the better of him at times too. And I go back to the conference finals in '99, 3 of 18 in game 6 when Pacers needed him. He was nowhere to be found. But that turned out to be one of those few and far between moments for Reggie.
You guys are awesome. You're the reason that 48 minutes is what it is, because you've got this knowledge. It's just like at your disposal. You're like computer-minded hoop people. So bravo. Good job, you guys.
We're just basketball sickos. That's all we are. But we enjoy it. All right, let's get to our final thoughts here and wrap up tonight's show. Bruce, how about you lead us off?
Jonas Valanciunas was recently traded to the Denver Nuggets to be Nikola Jokic's backup on a team with a legitimate championship aspiration. He has a fully guaranteed contract for just over $10 million for next season, with a team option for the following season for another $10 million. But instead of working with Joker, he wants to be Greek Freak 2.0 and sign a deal with the Greek team Panathinaikos. It's not as simple as JV bolting for Europe, because the Nuggets want him to honor his contract and play in Denver. And as a native Lithuanian, I can understand the attraction of playing in Europe. But he has never sniffed an NBA title in 13 seasons. He'll be on the best team of his career in Denver if he stays. But if he really wants to go to Europe instead of competing for a title in the NBA, I will be disappointed in a player that I have always admired, because he's showing the basketball world that winning an NBA title is just not a goal of his.
Well said there, Bruce. And if I was the Milwaukee Bucks or Phoenix Suns or a team like them, I'd be calling Denver, trying to trade for him right now, because if you could get him and kind of get under some luxury taxes, it might be worth it. But I'm hoping he sticks it out in Denver as well. World B?
Yeah, lost in the circus of Myles Turner leaving the Pacers to go to the Bucks, and the signing of trade of legendary Jay Huff to the Pacers. One big man that shouldn't be overlooked here, and one of the guys I'm going to be rooting for next season, I hope he stays healthy, is James Wiseman, who re-signed with the Pacers last week. He's on a 1-year deal. He played in 1 game last season for the Pacers in October, and he tore his Achilles, and he was lost for the whole season. Now he's back, and to this point, his career is highlighted as being that guy you mentioned who was taken between Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball in the 2020 draft. It was James Wiseman by the Warriors, one of the few mistakes they've made on the court in recent memory. So I really hope a guy like this stays healthy and can get himself, at least so we can see, get himself a whole season. We can see what exactly he has, because we just haven't been able to see it due to injuries. By the way, Anthony Edwards was, as I mentioned, the number 1 pick in that draft. Wiseman and LaMelo Ball have combined in their career to play 2 fewer games than Anthony Edwards, 379 to 381. Wow. So that tells you exactly either how durable Anthony Edwards is or just how injury-riddled these other 2 guys have been.
Nice. And speaking of youngsters, as much as I won't complain about getting to see more of these guys in Summer League play, I can't really take the Salt Lake City or California Classic Summer Leagues too seriously. Never could get behind the Orlando Summer League as well when the Magic hosted that. Sorry, World B. But come Thursday, I'm here to tell you, on July 10th, the real Summer League is coming, and that tips off in Las Vegas, where all 30 teams will be playing. And it's 10 straight days of nonstop action where fans, scouts, executives, and both current and former players all get together to watch the games. By next week, I think we'll all have even more thoughts and hot takes for our listeners, but I cannot wait for Las Vegas to be the hub for NBA basketball here in just a week. So looking forward to discussing that on our next show. But for this one, that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week. Be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everyone.